About 2 months ago, I removed my breast implants, and I really wanted to make this video to talk about it a little bit more. First of all, because I had so many questions on Instagram, and also because I wish this was the kind of information that I knew when I was a teenager or a kid, like thinking about even putting them in the first place. So I guess we start with like why I even got them in the first place. I was 19 years old, and where I lived in Australia growing up, it was just like the culture. Like I remember even in high school, all the girls that didn't have boobs, aka me, my other friends, everyone was like, oh, if you could get a plastic surgery, like what would you get? Oh, I want to get boobs. And then as well, because I was doing modeling, it was even more of a focus where like you needed to have boobs to look like in proportion. And there was very specific standards about like what was in proportion. And I have like a little bit of a butt. I'm a skinny girl, but that's where my body stores its fat. And so even more because of that, I felt, because I was like, and quite athletic, so not a lot of like fat on my body in general, and especially not on my chest, I felt really out of proportion, which is crazy because now that I don't have them and everything fits me so much better, things that like are my actual size, it's just wild to me to think that that was how I was thinking that I was out of proportion, when even like the sizes of clothes are telling me I'm not out of proportion. So anyway, basically I got them when I was 19 because I was, I guess, brainwashed into thinking by the culture that I grew up in that I was out of proportion, and I was super self-conscious. And I remember when I got them, it's not like I was ever one of those girls that was like, oh my God, look at my boobs, like I have boobs now, I look so good, or wearing like revealing tops or anything like that. Like it literally was just one day to the next, I was super self-conscious to just never gave it another thought and just didn't care and just felt like comfortable in my body. And for that, I was really grateful. But I remember like, I don't know, maybe a year or two later, I went to live in Ibiza for a summer. And over there, of course, like all the Spanish European girls, they're sunbathing topless. And I remember looking around and seeing these beautiful girls full of like confidence with little boobs like what I had had. And they didn't care. They weren't feeling self-conscious. Not only that, but they looked incredible with their bodies and their swimwear and their fashion and whatever they were wearing or not wearing, the way they held themselves. They had no shame about the small size of their boobs, and they looked incredible. And I just remember having the thought of like, wow, it's so funny. Like, I feel like if I grew up in Spain or like, whatever European culture they're from, maybe I never would have even wanted these boobs for myself, because these girls look amazing. Anyway, I ended up going back to Australia 6 months later or whatever. And I met an ex who was obsessed with boobs. And so I had some complications with my original set of boobs that I'd done, and I wanted to get them done anyway. And so, with this sort of outside influence, and of course the culture was not entirely just him, of course, I had been seeing a lot more success with my modeling since I had boobs. And so I just had this idea in my mind that I should go bigger. So I literally asked the doctor, what's the biggest size you can fit in my chest? Because I have a very narrow chest wall, without like looking ridiculous or hanging off the sides. Like, what's the biggest size that fits? And he said whatever size it was. I think I had 425 cc. And I was like, boom, that's it, put them in me. So that's what I had, 425 cc high profile implants, I think. What I am now is probably similar. I'm wearing a pretty tight sports bra, so they look even flatter than what they regularly are right now. But yeah, pretty similar to what I was before. So then why was I thinking about removing them? What prompted me to start even thinking about it was when I started to see on social media, and this is why I also felt important to post about my experience, just giving other perspectives, is when I saw girls posting on social media about their choice to remove. And most of these girls that I know, friends or, girls that I know, were doing it because of breast implant illness, which I didn't necessarily think I have. I'm not going to explain what it is because I don't really feel like it was relevant to me, but you can go and look that up, and there's so much information about that. But because of this information, it just prompted me to start like doing a bit of research and doing some Googling and asking questions of like, I didn't think I had that necessarily, but like maybe I should just get mine checked. And as I'm like reading and researching and finding out information, I realized that like implants can be quite toxic. And of course, they'll tell you, oh, it's safe. But anything foreign object that you put in your body, what your body does is it forms a natural capsule of your body's tissues around this new object to protect your body from any of the toxins or things that come out of that attacking your body, essentially, or your body having like an immune response, constantly wanting to attack it, and then you constantly getting sick. Something like that. That's what I understood. I could be wrong, but anyway, you can Google that information. But anyway, all this aside, it made me think I should just get my implants checked. So I had this on my mind for a while. Like I said, I didn't really think anything was wrong with me, so I wasn't really in a rush to do it. I put it off for probably like months and months and months. Oh, I'm busy. I'll cancel the appointment, book another one, whatever. Eventually I went for an appointment at the end of this summer. I think it was like September maybe. And in the 3 weeks between when I got the scan and I was waiting for the scans, because I did it in Greece. So Greece can be a little slow. So like for them to give me the results on a CD, I've got to take them to the doctor. He puts it in his little CD reader and reads the results. So it was about 3 weeks in this period. And I remember having the thought of like, I kind of hope there's something wrong with them, so I have a reason to get them removed. And in that moment, I realized what I'd kind of been subconsciously thinking for quite a while, that I was really rejecting the idea of having them even for aesthetic reasons. Like, don't get me wrong, my boobs looked great. There was nothing wrong with them. There was nothing like outwardly, I didn't feel bad or anything. I guess one thing that did change when I first got them was I was shocked actually. I had to like completely change the way I dressed. Like the normal like sacky, comfortable type things that I liked to wear before that I would have considered like fashion. Suddenly it made me look like a boxy plastic bag, and I looked really fat for no reason if I wore the same things that I did before. So I had to wear a little bit more like figure hugging stuff, which I don't really like wearing tight clothes, like other than for athletic wear. I don't really like wearing super tight clothes that like show off my curves or whatever. That's just not my style. I don't know. Another thing that I realized I had been doing for, I don't even know how long, I can't put a date on when I first started doing this, because it was just something that I suddenly realized when I got the results of the scans I'd been doing, was for a long time I had been really paying attention to and admiring girls that had small boobs, how they dressed, how they carried themselves, how beautiful they were, and really actually having this subconsciously in my mind. And I think that was me mentally preparing for what I really wanted. Then I did go to the doctor. I got the scans read. He said that, like, imagine this is the implant, nice and smooth. The implant had like folded on itself. So imagine there's like folds in the implant, and so every time I do like some kind of movement or activity, the implant's like rubbing on itself. And he said that it's fine, but in time, whether it's next week or in 10 years, especially given my type and level of activity, if you don't know, I'm a professional boxer, it's just a matter of time before that causes a rupture, and then it is a problem, and it is something that I have to look at removing as fast as possible. So he said, if not an emergency, but in the next time in my life I have time and opportunity, I should consider removing or replacing them. And given that I was taking that time off for an injury from boxing from a year earlier anyway, I said, you know what, before I start back boxing, which was my plan to do as soon as I came back to America, as I am now, let's just get it done now. And so I booked in for the following week and got the surgery done. The scans that I got was an ultrasound and an MRI. I initially just requested the MRI, but when I went to the diagnostic center, they told me I had to get an ultrasound as well. And something that was really interesting was when I was getting the ultrasound, they were like, yep, everything's fine, everything's perfect. Also same with the MRI. But when the doctor actually put the CD in and looked at it, he didn't think anything was wrong with what he was seeing for the ultrasound. But with the MRI, it was where he pointed out the folds in the implant. And I guess like both of them are highly qualified, and that's what they do, is look at the insides of the body and make judgments on if it's fine and if it's not. But where the radiologist said it's fine, because I mean technically it was fine, there was nothing ruptured, the implant doctor, the plastic surgeon, he could see that yes, it is currently fine, but it's not going to be fine for long. So you know, that's sort of the difference of the different people reading it too. So I think that's why it's good to get like different opinions from different kinds of doctors if you do the scans. The next thing also that was really interesting was before I went through with the surgery, the doctor asked me to go see his wife, who she is a breast oncologist, I think it was, something like that. And so I went to her office and she did another ultrasound of my like boobs and my armpits, like everything. And she showed me like on her thing, because the ultrasound is like, it's live and you can see what's going on. She showed me that I actually had blocked lymph nodes in my armpits that were blocked with silicone. So imagine we're being told that these implants are not toxic and that silicone's a safe material, and the body forms a capsule around the implant to protect the body from the implant. But yet still, even given all this, and even given that I have no problems, I have no rupture, I have no leakage, nothing, still I have silicone blocking lymph nodes in my armpits. And even removing the implants, I'll never get rid of that. Those specific lymph nodes that the silicone is blocking, it will always be like that for the rest of my life. And those lymph nodes are essentially dead. So if you don't know, lymph nodes is how your body excretes toxins. So, okay, not all my lymph nodes are blocked, but imagine over time, maybe they could have been. And, you know, if the toxins can't escape out of your body, that's when supposedly things like cancer can occur. So another thing to think about that, you know, I had already at this stage decided I was taking them out, but if I hadn't, I feel like that should have been a pretty good reason to do it also. How to find the right doctor. I was in Greece, like I said. I decided that I wanted to do it in Greece because my experience of Greek medical care is super top. I froze my eggs there, which I actually did another video about if you want to go and hear about that experience. I've been sick there many times. I've been to hospital many times, unfortunately. And so, yeah, every experience I've had with Greek medical care has been really good. The knowledge of the doctors has always been on par with any experience I've ever had in Australia or America. It's typically much cheaper. And the thing that I actually feel like is superior is that I really feel like they take the time to give you more personal care and are very thorough with their checks and questions they ask. A lot of my experiences, not all, but a lot of my experiences in America and Australia, it's more like a money-making machine. Like, come in, ask all the standard questions, boom, 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 okay, tick a few boxes, you're out. In Greece, like even when I went to an ear, nose and throat surgeon, because I was sick and my sinuses were blocked, and so they sent me to the ear, nose and throat guy, which was super cheap anyway, like cheaper than even a regular doctor in America. And he spent an hour with me, like shoving a camera down my nose, showing me like what was going on, blah, 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 like asking me 1,000 questions about my life. Like, this is just typical of like an experience with Greek medical care, in my experience. So I felt really confident about choosing a doctor in Greece. I know that there are a lot of plastic surgeons in Greece, and I really wanted someone that specialized in explants, because it's a different type of surgery. It's more of like a reconstructive surgery, and I feel like it's a little more difficult. I didn't know anyone else that had done an explant in Greece, so I didn't have anyone to ask a personal recommendation, but I did a lot of Googling, and if the doctor didn't specifically have explant written as one of their services that they perform on their website, then I didn't even consider them, because I'm sure they do it. A lot of doctors over there definitely do like replacements, which includes an explant. But yeah, if they weren't specifically listing it as something they do, I was like, they clearly don't do enough of them to bother listing it on their website, and I'm not going to even consider. So the first doctor I rang is actually the one I ended up going with, not for that reason. I had a consultation with 2 different doctors in the end. The first guy I went with, my doctor, he was very thorough. I just had a good vibe from him, answered all the questions, sat with me, like went through all everything, took his time. And I, just connected with him. I had a good feeling. I thought he would do a good job. He said all the right things that I had like sort of found in my research. He had answers to everything, even if it was like contradicting to something I'd heard. He explained very thoroughly like why his thoughts and, you know, knowledge are different to maybe what I read or blah, 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 like that. And so I felt pretty confident with him, but just even so, I had a second consultation with another doctor who basically said all the same information. And so yeah, after that, I would have felt confident with either doctor. It wasn't that I liked one better than the other. I thought that they would both be great and very capable of doing a great job. But I ended up going with the first doctor because the second consultation was actually like via Zoom. And I don't know, there's just something about when you meet someone in person, I just felt more connected. And so I ended up going with that doctor. The other thing is that he had his office permanently in Athens. I knew that if I had any kind of like complication or anything, I could go to the office to like get anything fixed or monitored or whatever. And I would actually see the doctor instead of like an assistant or something, which actually ended up being like what happened. So I'm really happy for the decision that I made, and it was great. There was a few different decisions that I had to make for the surgery, and one was whether or not to remove the capsule. My doctor, he didn't necessarily recommend it. He said he did it in my case because I specifically asked for it, and he explained to me the pros and cons of removing and not removing, and then essentially just let me make my own decision, which I liked. He didn't try and push me one way or another. The benefit of not removing the capsule. The capsule is the thing I explained. Your own bodily tissue forms around the implant to protect your body from the implant. So this would have been created and formed like 15, 16 years ago when I had the second set of implants put in. By not removing it, your body will absorb it back into itself regardless in time. I think he mentioned it might take a few months to do that, or a year, or I can't remember exactly. And so typically your recovery is faster, like you'll be back to exercise faster because the surgery is less invasive. But my concern and why we ended up removing the capsule is because exactly that, your body will absorb the capsule back into itself. And given that that capsule is there to protect the body from toxic substances, and I had like the silicone in my armpit, etc., that had even got out of the capsule, I didn't know what toxic substances might or might not be in that capsule, and I didn't want my body to reabsorb those substances. So even though I knew it was going to be a much more difficult recovery and a much more painful surgery, I chose for health reasons to remove the capsule. One of the other decisions that you can make is to get a lift or not. The reason people might get a lift is because like after having big boobs, the skin stretches. And then when you take them out, then it might be like, I don't know, a bit saggy or like loose or not looking good. And so a lift can just cut away some of the extra skin and like, you know, make your boobs perky and look good. My doctor recommended that I did not get a lift, first of all, because he said my boobs were pretty small to begin with, that I don't have a lot of tissue, and he didn't think it would be necessary. And I'm so glad that I took his advice. I didn't get a lift. He said, if after 6 months, when everything's settled and all the healing's done, you decide that you're unhappy with them, we can do a lift then. Yeah, it'll cost you a little bit extra. So in the end, I paid 4,000 euros for the explant surgery. If I was going to do a lift in that same surgery, it was going to be 6,000 euros. Or if I did the two separate, like 6 months apart, it was going to be 4,000 and 4,000. So overall, I would have ended up paying an extra 2,000 euros. But the benefit of not getting the lift originally is that the way he would have done it with the scarring would have been different. So that was another thing. He said, I don't want to give you a lift because first of all, I don't think you're going to need it. And second of all, I have to give you like the scarring that goes like downwards like that underneath the nipple if I do it simultaneous to the removal. Whereas if we did it later, it would just be the scarring like around the nipple. He would be able to do it with a different procedure. And so he suggested that like just for the scarring and probably non-necessity of even needing it, to not do it immediately or even at all. And yeah, I'm so glad. Like even from I couldn't even see my boobs the first few days because they were so tightly bandaged and I wasn't allowed to take it off even to shower. So I guess when I first saw my boobs, probably would have been like, I don't know, 6-7 days even. But immediately I was like, oh my God, they're perfect. And I was like swollen, everything like all weird shaped, like, yeah, my nipples were squashed. Like it was like not the prettiest, but just like the shape of the boob, everything that you could tell what it was going to look like. perfect, like perfect, perfect, perfect. I'm so happy I didn't get a lift. And I think from what he said, that's very typical of girls that have small boobs to begin with. And also I think the key that he said was I have good skin. I have like very good elasticity in my skin, which, little plug, I believe is because of the amount of collagen that I have eaten over the years. Also genetics, of course, that counts. Wearing sunscreen, not getting too much sun damage, eating nutrition is like a huge part of it, but eating specifically protein and collagen. Collagen protein is super important. I had always eaten a high amount of collagen for years because it helps with even like your ligaments, tendons, cell muscle repair, which as a professional athlete is something that's really important to me. Especially with, the constant little injuries and niggles and stuff that you get, you always want to be repairing as fast as possible. So about the recovery, my recovery, I feel like was really brutal and I wasn't really prepared for it. Although in saying that, I don't feel like it was anyone's fault for like me not knowing. I feel like I just kind of like maybe didn't ask many questions because I didn't really want to know. I didn't want to be talked out of it. I knew what I needed to do and I was just like, okay, it'll be right. Like other people do this, so we're going to be fine, right? So the things that I did know going in, I was going to stay overnight in the hospital and I was going to have drains coming out my body. So I want to show you, there's like a scar somewhere here. Maybe that's it. So basically there and there on the other side, I had drains coming out of my body and it's like a tube that I like sticky taped to my stomach because as they move, like it can be quite painful. It's like pulling on that insertion point all the time as you move. So I was just like baggy t-shirts, the drains, like you're gonna know you're not going out. You're not moving much from the couch for the first week at least. Like you don't even want to, you're in so much pain. They just ripped your muscle, cut you open, ripped your muscle off your chest, taken not just the implant out, but like all the capsule, everything. So now you have these two abrasive surfaces, like both sides of the chest wall rubbing against each other with every movement you make. And not just like arm movements, but even breathing. Like it's that abrasion is causing bleeding, which causes swelling, which causes a lot of pain. And that that blood and like, it's not even necessarily just blood. It was like, I don't know, it was blood, but it was also like some weird kind of liquid. And that has to go somewhere because if it doesn't go somewhere, it's going to go in your body and you're going to be really swollen and really sore, which I already was anyway. Like if you look at the video that I put up on Instagram, like the size of my hands, they were like so fat, my legs, like everything. I was super like, So anyway, and that's painful. That swelling is really painful. Like even my hands to touch, it was like little bit painful, like tender for sure. So yes, the drains help. And I lied and I got mine taken out a little bit earlier than what they should have been taken out because I was just so sick of being in pain with every movement. I also could have like been a little calmer with what I was doing. I was probably, for me, I was not really moving and not doing anything at all. But for a regular person, I guess I was moving a lot. Or like for, what the doctor expected, I was probably still moving my arms way too much. So I ended up, getting the drains taken out probably a few days early. And so because of that, I started to get more swollen and more pain. And so then I had to be going into the doctor's office like every second day. So he would manually drain the fluid out of me. And honestly, it was like instant relief. Every time he like drained the fluid out of me, I was like, oh, so this is why the drains were in there. I probably should have waited. But anyway, thank God. Like I said, thank God I chose this doctor. First of all, amazing doctor. But second of all, like in Athens, and I was able to go in anytime, well, not anytime, I had to make an appointment, but like every day he was available to me to go in and like, have the fluid drained out and ease the pain. So that was great. Things to consider on when you're picking a doctor. So as far as the recovery, I ended up having a hematoma like 16 hours after the original surgery. So my surgery was like 1 or 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And then you stay overnight in hospital. At some point in the middle of the night, I don't know if this is what caused it or what, but at some point in the middle of the night, I was sleeping and I like yanked one of my drains really hard by accident. And I woke up in so much pain. And also I noticed that like all one side of my body was really swollen. And I was like, oh my God, what's happening? So I called the nurses in And they were like, okay, don't worry, you're okay. Like they gave me painkiller, they gave me anti-inflammatory medication. Like you have a drip in your hand, like a catheter, and it's like instant, right? So usually every time they do this in like 15 minutes, I'm good. So 30 minutes passes and I'm like, I'm not good. I'm still in so much pain. I'm still really swollen, like, ooh. So I text the doctor and I'm like, hey, sorry to bother you in 4:30 in the morning. I think there's a problem. And he was like, what's going on? Like immediately video called me and like asked me to show him and everything. And when he saw what was going on, he was like, okay, we need to do emergency second surgery. You've got a hematoma. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And I was like, damn, like what a legend. Just like 4:30 in the morning, I wake him up in his bed, like the poor guy, and he's just like boom on it into the hospital. Also, he did that emergency second surgery for free. I did have to pay a little extra. I think it was like 800 euros extra, but that was like for the hospital and the anesthetist. The doctor did that for free. So like legend. So also things to ask, like your doctor in the initial, because I didn't know that I was going to get charged an extra $800, which fine, I'm happy to pay that. That was my bill. That was what happened, but it's just things to be aware of, because maybe another doctor might also charge for his service, like his own fee, like the depending on what country you're in. Like if it was America, that emergency second surgery could be like, who knows, tens of thousands of dollars. So these are questions to maybe consider asking and have information aware to yourself. Okay, so back to recovery. So I got out on the second day. I had the drains. I could not really move my arms too much. So I was really fortunate because I had two amazing people looking after me. So they were able to cook my food or order it for me, entertain me in the house in the day, because I was not really moving much from the bed to the couch to the bed. That was about it for probably more than a week. After a few days, I did get up to try and, go for little walks, like to get my hair washed at the hairdresser. Oh, that felt so good. I felt like half human again. The first time I showered was, I think, like 3 days after the surgery. So definitely have people on hand to like take care of you, look after you. Plan to like not move your arms as much as possible. Like, how do you need to set up your life that that's possible? And so week by week, how my recovery kind of looked was, I told you the first few days, couldn't really do much at all. I think on like the third or fourth day, I was finally able to shower. Still, I was not doing much more than like a short little walk. And even when I was walking so slow, because the idea is that you need to keep your heart rate low, because when your heart rate gets up, then there's more blood circulation in your body, and that can cause more swelling. And also like any movement, especially with your upper body and with your arms, or like heavier breathing, is going to cause more vibration in your chest wall, which is going to cause more fluid to produce more swelling, etc. So you just got to keep everything to a minimum, which was really hard to then also sleep, because I was not doing any exercise to exhaust myself. The good thing was, because I was in pain, I was taking painkillers. So I don't want it to sound like it was like brutal, awful pain all the time. The painkillers were great. And so I'm not constantly like, oh, I'm dead. But, with the drains constantly moving, it's like constantly this little pain here, this little pain there. It's like these niggly, annoying pains, or this like sort of low level, but just of like constant pain, that it gets exhausting. And so because of that, I felt like the first few days, especially, I probably slept pretty well, just being exhausted from pain. But yeah, once I got my drains out, even still, I was not really able to exercise and like burn a lot of calories and burn off energy that I just naturally kind of have. And so yeah, it got tough to sleep some nights a little bit. So also something to think about, consider, not think that you're weird if that happens to you. It was probably the end of the second week that I started doing more like longer walks, but even then super slow. I think it was after 3 weeks for the first time that I was doing like normal pace walks. I went to the gym and I got on the spin bike. At that stage, it was that the blood flow wasn't such an issue. It was fine for me to have like increased blood flow, but he still wanted me to not have too much arm movement. It was at the start of the 4th week, which I was told I shouldn't be doing this till after 4 weeks, but I don't know, I just felt okay to try. It was the start of the 4th week that I went for my first run, and I like put on this sports bra actually, which is like super tight, nothing moves, and went for like a really slow jog. Not far either, maybe like 4 or 5 kilometers or something, maybe 6, I don't know. Anyway, not far for me and what I'm used to. And I felt okay. It was so crazy though, because my boobs have never moved in my life, like not an inch, because they were so like, first I had nothing to begin with. And then when I had the implants, like nothing moved because the skin was stretched so tight. So even now that I like just have this like loose skin, it's like it, as far as how it looks, it doesn't look loose and it looks like perfect shape and everything. But the skin like here, for example, is much looser than like the skin on my stomach. I'm told that in time, by like the 6-month mark or maybe even sooner, that skin should become just like the skin on my stomach or my arm or whatever, like the normal tightness, but it's going to take time to shrink back. So it's like my boobs move, yeah, like they jiggle for the first time ever, and it's so weird. I'm like, oh, this is what it must feel like for girls with actual big boobs that have to wear a sports bra when they exercise. Like I wear a sports bra to like cover myself and not be naked, not to like actually, you know, support my boobs, but now I actually need to wear one to support my boobs. So that's something that's interesting for me for the first time. So I discovered that when I went for my first little run, and it was such a weird feeling, but I got used to it now. There was a few times that I went for a run in the last few weeks that I would wear like a sports bra I'm used to wearing to go run, and I would get like 3 steps outside the house and I would be like, nope, not this one. And I'd have to go back up and change to one that was much tighter, because they were just like, yeah, you know, I mean, maybe you don't know, but apparently girls that have big boobs that move around, that's why you wear a sports bra. I didn't go back to the gym to do any kind of chest weights until probably week 6 or 7, I think it was. And even then I wasn't doing direct chest weights, like a chest press or a push-up or anything like that. I was more like holding myself up doing a plank, or holding myself up in the leg raise machine thing, you know, where you hold like that. Or doing even like a stomach exercise that kind of uses my chest muscles a little bit in doing that. But I wasn't like doing anything where I was directly targeting my chest or like putting a lot of like heaviness on my chest to work. And it was so crazy, because after 7 weeks of essentially like not really doing any exercise, I was so sore. I did the easiest, shortest, simplest gym sessions, the lightest weights, and oh my God, I was so sore. Not so much in my chest, because like I said, I didn't really like hit it that hard, but even doing lunges, my legs were like not okay. My back muscles, I was trying to focus a lot on my back muscles. That was something I also noticed, one of the big differences. So I've had this thing with my shoulders where they kind of like naturally rolled forward like that. And for all my back exercises and all my trying, I couldn't get my shoulders to sit like that. And when you look at me like this, my shoulders kind of looked like they were always coming down because they have this like roll forward. Now I can just, without even trying, they can sit straight. And it's so crazy that like the weight of my chest, it was just like constantly pulling, like with all the back strength that I had, like my back is strong. And even with all that strength that I had, it was like still too much on my shoulders for my posture, that I just couldn't for the life of me get my shoulders to sit straight like that. And now, like I said, without even trying, like I've done like 3 gym sessions total in this whole time. And yeah, already it's like completely changed my posture, which I love. I think it looks so much nicer. And I'd always blamed that issue on boxing, because in boxing you're like constantly like this, right? But turns out it was actually the weight on my chest, which, speaking of the weight on my chest, so just kind of for a laugh, I asked the doctor if he could keep my implants. And not only did he keep my implants, he actually filmed the entire surgery and like narrated it. Not the entire thing, but like when he was doing any part of it. And like narrated like what he was doing and stuff. So he sent me the videos afterwards. It was disgusting, but it was like so educational and like interesting, really interesting. But like it was hard to watch. Like I wanted to vomit the whole way through. seeing myself cut open and stuff coming in and out. Ooh. Anyway, also asked for the implants, and so he gave me my implants in a bucket. He cleaned them and everything, don't worry, but he gave them to me in a bucket that I like took home with me, not the first day, but when I went for one of my post-op checkups. And these things in this bucket was so heavy. I couldn't believe it. Like, it's weird to feel it in a bucket, carrying it around. Like, this was just on my body. Like, I was running around and doing all my movements and anything in my life, just carrying this weight on my chest for all these years. Like, what, 18 years. No wonder the postural issues, like everything, even I'm really excited about, because boxing, I am almost immediately lost. Like, once all the swelling went down and everything, without even exercising, nothing, I was immediately 3 pounds less. So like, that's 1 weight class lower. My options are open. I can move weight class if I want, or I could stay in the same weight class and just have the easiest time ever making weight. Also, my elbows can touch my chest at the same time that my hands can protect my face for the first time in my life. I've always had something in stopping them, so it was like a choice. Do I want my elbows protecting my ribs or my hands protecting my face? And coach was always like yelling at me, and I'm like, I just physically cannot do this. Now I can. So I feel like my life as a boxer is about to get significantly better, easier, more opportunities. So that's a positive little side effect. And actually now I think I've lost between 4 to 5 pounds. And I'm not an expert, but like, is it the constant inflammation that maybe my body was, causing and fighting from having this foreign object in my body? Who knows? Maybe I'm completely off and I'm completely wrong, but just very interesting to me. Another question that I've been asked a lot is about the scars. So my doctor used the scars that I already had underneath. He went in the same place. He actually cut out the old scars to then restitch a new one. But it's basically the same. I think he said he had to go like a few millimeters longer on each side because I wanted the full capsule removed. If I didn't remove the full capsule, he could have kept it exactly what it was before, the same size. So that's another thing to consider, but honestly, like it's basically the same. Like, I can't really see that much difference or feel that much difference. I do have the little scars that I will end up with here, like from the drains, but they're so small, and I've been using a silicone cream that the doctor recommended to me, like on the scar and on the like 2 little spots from the drains. And already I feel like it's been 2 months, and already I feel the scar is like softening, like getting back to normal. But even that can take like more than a year to become like, white and thin and not really seen. So it will happen in time. The scars that I had before were actually up on my implant, so I really appreciate that he moved the scar to put it like in the actual crease, like because he cut out the old one, and he was able to move it and put it like where it should have been the whole time. So that was great. So you can't see them when I'm wearing a bikini or anything like that. The doctor did tell me that if I didn't have my scars down here already, I think he mentioned he could have gone in like through the armpit, and it would have been like a much better like scar, less visible, like all those things. But he was like, well, you already have the scar there, so we may as well use it, because otherwise you're just having extra scars kind of thing. One thing that is really interesting actually is this muscle in this boob, like the nerves or whatever, came back much faster than this one. So, and this is the thing why I guess they say it's like 6 months before you see sort of like the final result, because the way this one looks now compared to this one is different. I'm not going to show you, but to give you an idea, like when I flex like this, like when you can't even see because of this sports bra, but when I flex my chest muscle on this side, it flexes. When I flex my chest muscle on this side, it doesn't flex. Like it's like that muscle, the nerve there is still dead. And it will reconnect. Like only just in the last week, I've started to see like a little bit of like movement. Like it's like the signal's starting to get through. But yeah. So, I mean, it's surgery, right? Like they're cutting you open and everything, like things repair differently. And so the way this one kind of sits, like I see that this boob is like healing and becoming a much nicer shape and tightening up much faster than this one. It's like this one is, but it's just going slower. And I feel like what this one is now is what that one was like weeks ago. Whereas this one is like already looking like super like in good shape. So, and this one sits like just a little higher, a bit perkier than this one, which is interesting because it just shows like you can, you know, make your boobs perkier just by working out and like, you know, using the chest muscle. And like I said, I haven't even been like working out my chest muscles like at the gym. It's just like, you know, the natural use of it doing normal things. So that was also quite interesting for me. Probably the biggest question I'm being asked is how they look and if they look saggy. I feel like I already kind of answered that in the video. But in short answer, they look amazing. Like, let me draw you a picture. like they're perky, they're beautiful, they're small, but they're like amazing. If you go on my Instagram, you can kind of get an idea. Like, I'm wearing clothes obviously in sports bras and stuff, but you can kind of get an idea for how they look. Like, I'm so happy. I actually, it's crazy. I now seeing my boobs and then looking at pictures of me from when I had implants, I think they look better now. Like, I think they look way better. And I can't believe, not that they look bad with the implants, but I just can't believe I ever thought that that looked better. It didn't at all. And I mean, mine with implants even looked super natural-ish. Like, a lot of people didn't know that I had them. And yeah, I don't know. I just think like, this is my frame and this is what suits my body and what it's like meant to look like, you know? So it just, I think for me, it suits me better. And the other question I'm getting asked is, how do I feel overall? And I feel great. It's a hard question to ask because comparatively, it's not like I went from having them to now. There was at least a month in between that was like brutal recovery, awful. So by the time you start to feel like this, like where I'm at now, which, you know, I've been feeling pretty good for a while now, it's like I forget how I felt before to compare it. So I can't really tell you because I don't really remember, and I didn't have any significant bad symptoms before to report. The main thing that I noticed is, yeah, like with the shoulder flexibility, and I'm not even like fully flexible yet. Oh, that was another thing, is that I couldn't like bring my arm back all the way for a long time. Like even now it's still quite tight, like much tighter than it was before the surgery. But like trying to play volleyball or, you know, anything that required me to like kind of put my arms up, they were so tight. And not just in the front of the chest here, like the armpits were so tight. I was like doing a lot of stretches where I would like hold on to something and just like pull my body back to try and stretch them out. And it was like really painful actually. But I feel like it helped a lot to do that. And I couldn't do that in the first few weeks because I could also feel it like pulling on the scars. And okay, what's more important? My scars will be with me forever. So I'd rather just like let them heal and I'll get my flexibility back in time. And yeah, so I feel like the biggest thing with the recovery is like have people to look after you, make sure you have time in your life in case it takes longer than you think. Don't rush anything because yeah, like your body will heal in its time, and you don't get a second chance at healing. Like it's, you know, you want to give it the best run because that's what you're going to be left with for a long time. So I hope that answers all the questions. If you have more questions, you can comment and I will either answer them if they're simple or if it's a lot of questions and I missed that much, maybe I'll do another video. But I hope this helps in some way. I know I would have liked to know a lot of this information. So good luck if it's something that you're considering, and all the best.